to sign into Teams Admin Center now in the tenants that we are making use of here, right? Okay. So admin.teams.microsoft.com is the URL where we are, right? Supposed to have our session. Okay. All right, so that's opening, and I just also want to check from my YouTube and find out if I'm having what I'm supposed to have right there on time. So let me just quickly check. What's this? I'll check my YouTube channel. Okay, I think I'm good. I can see that I'm live. So yes, happy about that. So I just want to move on to where we stopped. And I think I will need to zoom in my screen a bit from the feedback. So if you have questions on YouTube, you can drop them. If you have them on Facebook, you can drop them. If you have also on LinkedIn, as we are currently broadcasting to this media at the moment. So we have been looking at, we looked at Teams app the last time. I mean, we looked at the users and then we finished evaluating users. And then it is time for us to go into guest access and external access. So really, what is guest access, or who is a guest in an environment? So a guest is someone who is outside of the organization, or a user who is outside of your organization, whom you have invited to your environment to collaborate with you. So the difference between a guest and an external user has to be very, very clear. A guest has an element of presence in your tenants, though bearing an external identity, but you can manage the attributes of that guest, right? But an external user is absolutely someone outside of your organization. And there is a table that really describes what a guest can do and what a guest cannot do. So I would just say differences between guests and external users in Microsoft 365. Microsoft 365. So there's a table I want us to look at today. Once I see that table, I will know it. This could be the table. Let me see. Look at how it looks. So there's a table down below. Yeah, this is the table here. So the differences between external and guest access, right? So if you look at this, you will see that a guest can chat with someone in another organization, yes and yes. Call someone in another organization, yes and yes, right? And see if someone from another organization is available for call, yes and yes, based on condition. But there's one very important thing I want to look at, right? And it's about file sharing. So if I come here and I look at this, I'm trying to look for that particular point that says no to read. Screen sharing, edit setting, delete GIF, presence, delay, use at mention. So basically, I'm not sure I can lay my hands on that particular document like right immediately, but I know that it should be available somewhere here, which speaks about the file sharing. So if you have a guest in Teams, then the feature for you to have the option for you to share file, to have the attachments feature is not available for external user, but that is available for the guest in your environment, right? So that is a very, very common difference between a guest and an external user. So how do you even see, so this is what I'm talking about, share files. To external user is no, but to a guest is yes, right? So that means you can share file with external. You can share file with a guest user. You cannot share file with an external user. Now, how do you even know, right? How do you distinguish a guest from an internal user? So if you go to entra.microsoft.com, you really see the difference between, how to distinguish your external users from your internal users. So I'm just waiting for that to come up so that we can really see when you see a guest, how you're able to know that this is a guest. And when you see an external user, how you can know that this is an external, when you see an internal user, how to know that this is an internal user, different from a guest. But for an external user, you do not have the presence of that user in your directory in the first place. So looking at this, if I bring this now, you will see the user type, right? The user type that's showing guests, right? So if I pull this forward, you will notice one thing in common. For the ones that have guests, you will see this here, EXT, right? For this one that have guests, you have EXT. For this one that has guests, you have EXT. But for members, you don't have that. You only have them bearing the domain of the environment where they are where they are created. But these are invited users, the guest users. You can see that this user is naturally from his email address is admin at paulhgc.com.ng, right? But is an external user who has a presence in my environment, therefore becoming a guest before you see it at mvpbenefits.onmicrosoft.com, which is the home domain of this environment, right? And then you can see this guy also coming from Gmail. So you can see that the art that comes from the original primary domain of the user will eventually become underscore, right? So you can see that this is supposed to be Abiodun Shegun 7@gmail.com. But because he has been invited as a guest in my environment, it becomes Abiodun Shegun 7_gmail.com's hashtag EXT hashtag at mvpbenefits.onmicrosoft.com. So this is how to differentiate guest users from your internal user. You can actually filter to say that you want to filter based on account type, and the account type that you are trying to filter with is only guest user. In that way, you can filter out the guest users in your environment, as the case may be. But our point of consideration here is not only about external user or guest user alone, or from the team's administrative center, we can really control that what a guest user should be able to do when you have invited the guest user to your tenant. You can really decide what they should be able to do. So that's the essence of today's conversation, right? So we'll really see how you can control what these users should be able to do. So coming on, you can see that we can see what or guest access lets you control how guests collaborate with people in your organization. So you can invite people outside of your organization to have access to selected teams and allow them to join meetings and chat with your users, right? Then learn more about guest access. So is what you use this link for. Okay. So really what is there is when you invite a guest to a tenant, I just want to see a tenant where I'm a guest in another environment. Let me bring this onto this screen. So for example, in this environment, I am a guest in Boom Tech. I'm also a guest at Adesa Solution Private Limited, like limited company, right? So now I am in Teams. I can see team chats. I can see notification. I can see calendar, see Teams, see call, see OneDrive, admin center. So the very moment I want to go to a tenant where I am invited to as a guest, right? Having accepted the guest invite and all of that, I'm coming up to my profile picture and I'm just clicking on here, right? And then I can click on that tenant where I am a guest, and the system will automatically switch me to the organization where I am a guest. And mind you, when I am there, right, the only thing I can see is the team that I've been invited to in Teams, and whether I should be able to have the private call features, right? Whether I should be able to make video call from Teams, whether I should be able to have my calendar in Teams, whether I should be able to, see all these in Teams will depend on how the admin has set the guest access settings for me in my environment, right? So I'll drag this away again. But one very important key thing that you should be aware of here is that the guest access is a settings feature, right? So I usually tell people that there are differences between settings and policy. So for settings is for the whole organization, while policy is for is for you can design policy to speak to certain people in your organization, turn on some features, turn off some features. But when it has to do with setting is an organization-wide change, right? So if you turn anything on or turn anything off, it's going to affect the whole organization. So you should be aware how to distinguish distinguish settings from policy, because policy in itself can really be tricky, right? When you are trying to distinguish it from a guest. A setting, right, in your environment. So for this, if you want to allow guest access, right, that is going to be turned on. So what this means is that in Teams, you are allowing people to be able to come in and collaborate on Teams as guests. And if you want to allow them come in, then you want to see if you want to manage their calling, their meetings, their messaging, and all that has to do with it, right? So if you don't want them to even come in the first place, you're just going to turn it off. So once you turn it off, you're not going to find anything here to control anymore. Because in the first place, you are explicitly saying no to guests. So you should not be worried about what they should be able to do because you have shut the door against them in the first place. But anything that is making you to open the door onto them, to allow them come into your environment to collaborate, then you want to control what they should be able to do. So from the previous screen I brought up, you would see that make private call is turned on by the policy, default policy internally, right? That is why in that screen, you could really see that I'm coming back there to bring it on the screen. You could really see that from that my guest access side, I'm able to see the option to make a private call, right? So it is because the administrator has decided to leave the make private call for guest on. So if you had turned this off and save it, then the calling feature would disappear from my Teams. And mind you, it is not going to be specific to a certain guest or a certain number of people because it is a settings feature. Like I mentioned, settings affect the whole organization. Then it means that when you turn this on, then you should be sure that it's going to affect everybody, right? So let's say we want to say accept them to make calls, right? So while in meetings, message manage what meeting features are available to guests during meeting hosted by people in your organization. Do you want your do you want your guests to be able to do video conferencing, right? Do you want them to be able to make video conferencing calls? Do you want them to be able to share their entire screen, or do you want to limit them to only be able to share a single application at a time, or do you want to disable the feature of screen share for the guests in your tenants? It can be a security or a compliance requirement. You may decide to turn on or leave it turned off, or specify that they should be able to share only an application or a single application at a time. So meet now in channel. Do you know what that meet now means? I'll drag this guy over here again. So if I were in a team, right, probably just in like this team that I am here, you would see that meet now in channel is turned off for me. And that's why up here, I cannot see the meet now here, right? So if I were in a standard tenant, let's say, for example, here, right? And I come to Teams, let me see. I don't know why I can't find Teams there. I have actually made a lot of changes, but let me see. I don't even see Teams there. So, but if I were in a standard tenant, I'm just going to switch back to my regular tenants in this particular place here. So if I'm switching back to my primary tenant, right, and I'm coming into Teams, then I would have the option to be able to do the meet now in channel, because I am an internal user, and the policy has allowed me to be able to do a meet now in private channel. So if I come here, for example, right in this channel, right, I can see the feature up here that says meet now, right? This meet now feature is turned off for the guest in the tenants where I switched to earlier. So the admin can really decide to turn off a feature or that feature for you so that you are not able to see the meet now in channel. So I'm just dragging off this guy away from my screen. So I'm coming back here, right? So what we are saying is meet now in channel. Where is it? Meet now in channel. So I can turn this off, meet now in channel, right? Or turn it on, but the default is on. And in the tenant where I was invited to, this is turned off. And that's why I could not see meet now in channel. So participants can give control. So for the aspect of give or take control, I can really control what the users should be able to do, whether they should be able to, that feature of request to take control of another person's screen. I feel that this should be turned off, right? But it depends on how your organization operates. You can decide to leave it either on, or you can as well turn it off if you don't want that feature to take effect. Now, talking about messaging, right, from the guest access point of view, the messaging part, do you want them to be able to edit their sent messages? So what this means is that when they have sent their messages, do you want them to be able to have that feature where they come back and then they can click to edit the message? Or do you want them to be able to, after sending a message and they have a second thought, should they be able to delete their message, right? So you can decide to say, you can edit, but I don't want you to be able to delete your messages once you have sent them, right? Then we can say that you want them to be able to delete chats. So sometimes you want to wonder, what's the difference between chat and messages, right? So that you may also want to check out, because it's a bit confusing to me. And if you have the response on how to distinguish between message and chats, you may want to also let me know. But in my mind, I'm thinking that sent messages could be talking to messages in channels, while chat can be talking to a one-on-one. I may be wrong, right? So, but do you want to even disable chat for them in the first place? You can also disable chat or enable chat. So this information is saying when this is on, guests can chat in Teams and search for people in your organization. When this is off, guests cannot search for people to start or join private chats, but we still have access to chat in channels and private meeting and existing one-on-one chats. That is a chat that was already in existence. They can, but they cannot search for new people and have a chat with them in Teams. But the big question is, would they be able to continue an ongoing chat? Or is he going to turn off the ongoing chats, right, between him or her and the other person in the organization? That is left for our curiosity. So do you also want them to be able to have GIF while in Teams, right? You can decide if they should or should not. Then GIF content rating, talking about memes in chats, and then stickers in conversations. You also want them to have immersive reader for messages. So all of this, you can decide whether they should have them or not, right? So after making your settings, right, you can click on save. But note that whatever that you are doing, it's affecting the whole of the organization. A this is not like a setting that is specific to a certain group of persons, but it is particular to everyone within your organization. So once you hit on save, it's going to affect everything. And you can't, it's not like policy where you can create policy and exempt some certain people from policy. For settings, it is straight ahead affecting everybody. So I'm going to discard this, right? But really, this is where you can make those changes. Okay, so having done that, the next point within users is the external access setting. Now, for external access, I would always like to point it out that external is somebody or a user outside of your organization who does not have any form of presence within your tenant for in form of any kind of maintenance at all. So for this, for example, if I felt that this guy is carrying out some form of malicious activities, even as a guest in my environment, I can just decide to disable his guest access, right? Just uncheck this and then save this, and the account become disabled. What it means is that this guy can no longer access resources within my environment. I can come to his identity, come to information and edit this information if I choose to change the display name, or if I choose to do like a lot of these sponsors, right? This is talking about sponsors. Who is sponsoring this guy? Then contact information, really, this is a place where you can decide to add more information about him, perhaps the city where he lives, the country where he lives, the mobile phone number, his email address, his fax phone numbers, and all of that. So for his job title, you can decide to also put this, and for his identity, you can decide to put his first name, his last name, as the case may be. In short, you can even convert him to an internal member, right? So contacts, parental control is for minors, and then settings, and if it has an on-premises presence, you can as well deal with those. So this is why it is paramount for us to differentiate between guest users and external users, right? So if you come to back to this and now you understand what I mean by external user, you will find out something here that is speaking to allow all external domain for Teams and Skype for Business users in external organization. Do you want to have something to do with people of a particular domain, and you want to block some people from certain domains? You can really decide what to do, right? In this regard, you can decide to allow everyone, like any domain at all, to deal with you. But before I move on, there's something that looks a bit confusing to people that I would like to address here before we carry on with anything regarding what is called federation. So the point I'm trying to explain is federation. This is your organization. If this is your organization, where is my rectangle? I like using that rectangle on top of it this way. And then there are countless organizations out there, right? There are countless organizations out there that you cannot even number, like they are all around you because you are not the only organization around that environment. Now, the point about federation is that if you have an open federation, like if you allow all domains, what it means is that you can have interaction with anyone within this environment without any form of access control, in the sense of blocking them from having interaction with the users within your organization. So by default, Microsoft will allow you have interaction with anybody from any domain, ABC of cloud, xyz.com, anything at all that you want to deal with, right? You can actually have interaction with them. But okay, some organizations will decide to be able to only have interaction with certain organization. So what I'm talking about is, for example, you want to say you want to have something to do with organization A, organization B, and organization C down below here. So if you are at, what you do in that case is you're going to allow specific domains, right? Allow specific domains, you are allowing A, you are allowing B, and then you are allowing C, right? If you're allowing A, B, and C, allowing A, B, and C, what it means is that you are blocking all other domains. What it means is that you are blocking this domain, blocking this, you know, blocking this, right? Blocking this, blocking this, blocking this. either intentionally or unintentionally, but this act that you've taken is going to block all this domain from having anything to do with your organization. All right. So that is what it means to allow specific domain. So allowing specific domain block all other domain, right? While blocking specific domains allow other domains. So let's say, for example, right, I'm going to clean this off. Let's say, for example, you have that organization this way. You have that your org this way. And then you want to say that that organization should block certain domains. So it should just come, block only two external organization, right? Should block this org. I'll put it in red. Block A and block B. So what it means is that when you block A and block B, it goes to imply that you are allowing every GIC and array organization outside there, both the ones that are in existence and the ones to come. Because this is very important that we mention this, as it has to do with what is called federation, right? For federation in teams, if you are blocking specific domain, you are allowing others. If you are allowing specific domain, you are blocking others. So what can I also use to explain this? If you are blocking domains, you can count how many you can block, right? But if you want to block certain domain, you cannot really count how many. How do I put it? If you want to accept certain domain, right, you specifically say you want A and B accepted. Now you can no longer count how many you have blocked, right? So if any organization is coming to have anything to do with you, you have to explicitly allow that domain before you can have interaction or collaboration with that domain, because you have intentionally or unintentionally blocked out all those domains. But if you are blocking certain domains, you are bringing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 domains, and you are blocking that, then the number of other domains outside of the ones I have allowed are all allowed, right? So, and I just hope that that was straightforward enough. So, but if I come here now, you really understand what I'm talking about. So for this organization that allow all domains, it is operating on what is called open federation. So if you click down here, you have block all external domains. So this is the most restrictive setting where no one is allowed, right? Now, if you come here and say block only specific domain, so this will create a list of external domains that are blocked. All other domains will be allowed, right? So that means if I come here, I have to say block domain, right? I have to put all those domains here. Contoso.com, gmail.com, right? abc.com, and so on. I can list them all here. And then when I'm done with that, what I do is I will click on done, just so I can block those domains. And the same thing also, if I want to allow specific domain, then I'll create a list of external domain that are allowed. Only the external organizations specified are trusted. All other domains will be blocked. So if you create a trusted list of domain now, right, you have blocked all other domains that are not listed among the trusted domains. Whether those domains are currently in existence or they are going to be in existence in the future, you have blocked them until you either go to allow them specifically or you're going to block them specifically. Now, looking at it, if I want to do that, the same thing, just type in the domain there. And once you do that, you click on done. I don't know if there is any xyz.com, but let's say I'm allowing xyz.com unintentionally, right? If I do this now, I click on add and I click on done. If I do this xyz.com and I leave this thing here and go, what it means is that it is only xyz.com that I will be able to have interaction with. And this is really very dangerous, because this is as good as if there's no xyz.com that is federating with me, it's as good as I'm putting it on block all domains because I've allowed only a domain that I'm not aware of, right? So you must really be careful what you are adding and what you are removing, right? So, but by default, Microsoft will allow you have rapport with all domains, right? Now, this when you do it per domain, you are really blocking or allowing the whole users in that environment. There is no specific way to say that you only want it for these people and you don't want it for other people. It is something that runs across board for all the users within that domain, either A user, B user, C user, X user, Y, or user Z. But I think very recently, I see this feature here. People in my organization can communicate with accounts in trial tenants. So for those who are using trial tenants to have interaction with organization, there is option that turns it off. So if you're using developer tenants or if you are using like a trial 1 month trial tenant and you feel like you want to host a meeting with a standing organization, and then unfortunately you are unable to search for them or they're unable to search for you or have interactions with you, it is just simply because the trial tenants has been turned off, which is by default turned off for the organization. So if you want to be able to have interaction with an organization, then you must have to turn on the guest user, the have interaction with external trial tenants. Apologies. So that's how it works. I'm just looking through just in case I have some questions within so that we can also trash them as soon as possible. So from the way it is, so let's move on quickly. All right, so let's move on quickly. So for here, you have block specific user from communicating with people in your organization. So this is like federation as well, but this is user specific. You see that when we talk about this, we saw that it is allow specific external domain, right? If we come here and we click on add, you will see that it is just contoso.com, which is the entire domain. Now, but if we come to, let me cancel this. But if you come to this other feature here, block specific users, you will find out that, let me click here, right? You will see that for block specific users, you will see that it is john@contoso.com. So you can decide to block one particular guy from the domain, right? While you allow the domain, you can as well decide to say that you do not want your users to have interaction or rapport with a particular guy in that tenant for a reason that maybe only you can explain. So people in my organization can communicate with account to trial tenants. We talked about that. People, specific users from communicating with people in my organization. Then people in my organization can communicate with users who are using custom application built with Azure Communication Service, right? ACS. So you can decide to do that or not. So basically from here, I want to encourage you to make sure that for federation, you really understand it. And one thing to mention, and which is very important, is that Control M this time. If I'm blocking you, if this is an organization A and this is an organization B, my mouse froze. What's happening? And this organization B, right? If I am allowing you, right? If I'm allowing you for this to work, maybe I'll use this feature here. If I'm allowing you, you must also allow me, right? The fact that I allow you does not mean that we can federate, right? It's a two-way thing. Once I'm allowing you, you should also try to allow, you should also allow me. So for example, you are searching and you're having issues. So how do you even know if it's a federation issue? Federation issue happens when you are trying to search for somebody in Teams and the response you're getting is you cannot find this person because your organizations are not set up to talk to each other. That's exactly what the error you will get when it has to do with when it has to do with federation issues. So if you come here and you see that you are in allow, right, all organization, and then your third-party organization also cannot reach you, you should let the IT admin also check that they are not on allow specific domain where your domain is not on the list, or they are not on block specific domain where your domain is on the list. So the point I'm trying to raise is it's a two-way thing. It's a vice versa thing. If this guy allows you, you must either explicitly allow him or implicitly allow him. I'm sure that that English is not so strong for me. So, but that's what it is for external settings, right? So the good thing about external setting is that while guest access is on setting, I see that external setting also has a policy, right? So this is where you can really look at it. Instead of running the setting for the whole organization, you can as well make it a policy that you want to specify to a list of people in your organization. You can check the org-wide policy, which is going to affect those who do not have custom policy assigned, or those who are by default not giving policy at all, right? They will default to global org-wide policy. So what is this? Allowing them to have rapport with people of external organization. So Teams and Skype for business user in external organization, you may just want to block it for some certain people, right? So when you are trying to limit to a set of people, what you're going to use is the policy feature. So people in my organization can communicate with unmanaged Teams account. So this speaks to external users with Teams account not managed by an organization can contact users in my organization. And all right, who are those? Who are these users? When unchecked, unmanaged external team user can't start a conversation with people in your organization. So once it's on organization account, if it's a private account, hey, you are not going to be able to chat with people in my organization. People in my organization can communicate with users who are using custom application built in ACS. So you can decide to leave this. People in my organization can communicate with Skype users, right? See, speaking to Skype private users. This is talking to Teams private users. Now, on the 5th of May, right, the Skype private Skype is going to be retired. And that's why you're getting this prompt here. That starting in May 2025, Skype will no longer be available. This setting will be removed from here as well. Okay. So this setting is going to get off here, right? And then for people in my organization can communicate with users who are using custom application built on this, and you can do this. But the good thing about this is that you may decide to allow some to communicate with people outside of your organization. And if there are people who are not really client facing, right, you can decide to create a policy and call it block communication with external users. It's always very good that you have the policy named in a way that can be very descriptive. And also, you can also have a description here just so it can expatiate on what the policy is going to do. Now you're going to say Team and Skype for business users in external organization. You are going to say no, it's not going to allow them. But people in my organization can communicate with unmanaged Teams account. You can also say no. And then you can say people in my organization can communicate with this. You may decide to say no to this. But I think those two settings have helped. And then the third one that should be concerning me should be the third one, right? So I'm just going to hit on save. So when I do save at this point, how do I assign that policy to user? I can just click on this, and then I click on assign user, right? And then the next thing I do is to search for maybe my lab guy, right? I can just search for lab guy, and this is my lab guy here. So what is happening now is every other person will be able to communicate with people outside my organization. But you see lab guy isn't ever going to have that opportunity to communicate with people outside of my organization. And that does not affect the entire users of my organization. That was done via policy and not via settings. So if you do settings, it's going to affect everyone. But if you use policy to manage your external access, it is going to limit them to specific people that have the policy assigned to them. So that is for this. For B2B collab, it's speaking to B2B access lets people in your organization collaborate with members of other organizations in external Microsoft 365 tenants, right? So this is done using the external ID for business for both organizations. The one very important thing I want you to be aware of, which is one of those things I mentioned earlier, is that B2B member is possible only when both organizations allow the access for each other. So one organization cannot set up and the other organization is not setting up B2B, that is business to business collaboration, and you'd expect that it should work. Nope. Therefore, you all need to coordinate with the external organization admin to make sure that cross-tenant access settings allow sharing with you. So it's a two-way thing, like I also mentioned in terms of external access. So manage access for users with B2B and all of that. So you can decide to also allow Copilot for B2B members. Depends on what you want, right? So now, Teams devices, there's little or more, nothing we can really say about this, but just to introduce you to the fact that there are dedicated devices for Microsoft Teams. So there are dedicated devices for Microsoft Teams. So I may just want to see Microsoft Teams devices. So if I go to images, right? If I go to images, you will really find out that we have like devices so beautifully made for Microsoft Teams. You can see meeting room devices. You can see Teams phone. You can also see panels. You can also see beautiful devices, display devices, right? Like what you can see here. So there are dedicated devices for Microsoft Teams, and you can really manage those devices from the administrative center, right? So if you come here, you have Teams rooms for Windows. So one thing you can see here is you can manage the settings. So if I had devices here, you will see the list here. I can manage the setting. You have Teams Room on Android where you can even set up the configuration profile for those devices. For those who do Intune, really understand what you can do with configuration profile. You can set the device lock. You can also try to enable HDMI and all of that. So you can see that the diverse, then HDMI content sharing. So these are like what you can set in terms of your Teams room on Android. You see also Surface Hub, which is legacy. You also see panels, you see phones, you see display, you see SIP devices. So these are what's like the pictures that you can see here. You can pick any of them here to have a look and feel of how it is. So if you come here to panels, you can also have your configuration in terms of that and so on, right? So you can, I think there's a place where you can also purchase your devices from here, then place order to purchase your devices there. So apart from this, you also have the Teams applications. So for Teams app, this speaks to how you are able to manage application within your tenants, right? What applications do you want your users to be able to make use of? That is a very crucial thing. So some applications that are not approved or some applications that you feel that can infringe on your data privacy, you can decide to deliberately block those applications in your tenants by taking action against those applications, right? To say nobody in your organization should be able to use CSP custom app for a reason that you know, right? So how you do that is you can pick on the application, right? Once you pick on the application, then you can come to action up here And then you can decide to, okay, I think I will even need to open the application this way. And when I open the app, I come to action up here, and then I can decide to say, no, I want this app to be blocked. So it depends on what I have for it. I can decide to block it. I don't know why that's not clicking. So so that's supposed to come up. I'm just waiting for it, perhaps loading up, right? Perhaps loading up. I'm not sure why it's trying to delay. But that's where you can block applications. Let me just come back. So, oh, this was telling me to unblock as well. So this was blocked already. I can decide to come here. Let me just test with one again and see if I'm able to block it. So it's still not loading up. But ideally, I'm supposed to be able to block this application from there. But then you can also come to users and group, right? You can specifically allow that to eligible users or edit availability for users. Then in terms of permissions as well, you can specify those here, right? But what is really interesting to me is about the action that you can take. Yeah, this is it as it is up now. So I can decide to block this app one-to-one world DVDs, right? So I can decide to block it. So if I come back to manage apps, so one-to-one DVD, I think that was just loading. I wasn't patient enough. So if I come back to manage apps right now, then I'll really see that one-to-one. Let me just come here. Keep on. So I'm trying to look for one-on-one, right? Let me scroll to this other side and see the status of the app. So it's supposed to be blocked by now. So let me just do a refresh and see how that is. I'm just trying to look for the status of that one-to-one app. Okay, so you can see that the status is showing, this one is already showing blocked, which is the CSP custom app. But I know that I blocked this one-to-one, so let's check it again. Maybe it's not trying to sync through at the moment. I'm going to hit on, this app is blocked already. Okay, so let's come back, it's saved. So I'm expecting that to be blocked now. Coming back to manage apps. I would really expect that this app shows blocked for me here. So if there is delay, and I'm very sure that it's just taking its time. But really, you can block applications that you do not want to allow, because there are a lot of applications that can be used either on Teams channel, on the one-on-one chats, during the course of your meetings. You can really have access to a lot of application in an environment. Okay, that's taken already, is blocked. So because of course you see all those applications, right? The ones that are published by Microsoft, the ones that are third-party applications, and the ones that are possibly custom apps. So what is the difference between Microsoft applications, custom applications, and third-party applications? For third-party applications, they are applications that are in existence, they're published by vendors that are not Microsoft, right? So publisher, you can see Adobe, you can see ADP, you can see Work Advantage. Then all these applications here are called third-party applications, while the ones that are published by Microsoft, like the advisor for Teams, right? Like the agreements, right? The Agrippa solution is third party. Microsoft Corporation is the one that does this. They are published that rather. Then all these are third-party application, and you find a few Microsoft published applications there. So there are three types basically: Microsoft applications, third-party application, which are the ones published by these, or custom applications, which are the ones that are built by your own organization to fit into your own need. and you can really choose what to allow and what to block. Because if you come to Teams, or even if you come to chats between you and an individual, or even in a Teams meeting, you can really make use of application. Let's say I'm coming here between the chats that I'm having with Paul in Teams, I can decide to add applications to it, right? So there are a lot of applications, you can see them here. So that's admin center there is where I can manage which apps is Paul supposed to be able to see, or am I supposed to be able to make use of while having a chat with Paul, or while I'm in a Teams chat, or even when I have myself in a meeting chat like this. So that is what that can help you do. So if you suspect an application is infringing on anything within your organization, you can choose to block that application from existence. So this is where you can really talk about those, right? So you can see the status of the application from here. And at any point you feel that you want to enable the app for usage, of course, you can come back to action and then you can click on unblock. And then once that is saved, then that application is going to be allowed. So that is how you block application and how you can allow application. So the next point that I will just introduce before we call it a wrap today, because we have spent quite some time already, is on meetings. So for meeting, you have audio conferencing, you have meeting policy, you have customization policy, you have meeting settings. Remember, when you see settings, it's speaking to the whole organization. And then when you see policy, it's speaking to what you can create and moderate it to speak to certain individuals. You also have live event setting, even as you have live event policy. You have meeting templates, and then you have meeting template policies and event policy. They're talking about best practice configurations. So I will just really introduce us to what is audio conferencing in the first place. So audio conferencing is that ability or feature of Teams where you are allowed to dial into Teams using a PSTN calling. That is a phone that does not have access to internet, can truly be used to manage, to come into Teams meeting, right? Can be used to come into Teams meeting, and that's, you can control how you want those calls to be able to work, right? So I'm just trying to refresh this because I'm having like a freeze on that admin center there. So audio conferencing can be tool. You can allow a tool or a toll-free call. So if you are setting up and it's a toll audio conferencing that you have, right? When people call into your organization, they would have to pay for the call that they are making to your organization. But where it is that you are making a toll-free call, right? Or you set up to allow toll-free, it means that you have to have the communication credits that the user who is calling in from outside is going to be taking the billing from, right? So let's just look at what is available in the global org-wide default policy first in terms of audio conferencing. What are you supposed to have? Include toll-free numbers in meeting invites created by users of this policy. So it is turned on by default. So if you have a toll-free phone number, once someone has audio conferencing license and is setting up a Teams meeting, then the policy is going to allow him attach that toll-free phone number. It therefore means that when people call into your organization, then your organization will be the one to pay for the call. But if you want to set it to say toll calls only, right? Toll calls only. Toll call only. So now if you look at this toll call only policy setting, you can decide to say, no, this should be turned off, right? This should be turned off. What this means is that if you have, this is when you can manage when meeting features are turned off. I mean, if you add this to a user, if you assign this policy to a user, right, include a toll-free number in the meeting invite created by users of the organization. If you already have that number, you can add, but I'm turning this off to say no. Once that user set up, then the meeting should not add a number where I will be an organization paying for that. So once I do that, I may just want to do this and then go to assign users, search for the user I want to assign the policy to. The same way that you assign policy to users, you can just decide to pick up this lab guy already, and you click on apply. So you click on confirm. So at this time, what you've done now is you've been able to give this policy to the user, right? So again, the next thing is about meeting policy, which we are going to be looking at in our next session. Then customization policy speaks more to Teams Premium license. So we really need to be rounding off at this point. I'll just look through the charts from different sessions and see if there is anyone that is having any question, and then we can provide responses accordingly. But I hope that the little that we've been able to do today, we are really insightful to you, and we'll always be live on weekends, right? So on Sundays like this from 4 to 5 p.m., if you feel like you want to join us in these trainings, of course, you can come and join us to watch them. I mean, you can also make contributions or questions as the case may be. And the reason why we have to turn this online is because we have a lot of persons who have inquired to join this training, but because we have gone very far, we have only given them assignment to see what and what they should be able to do, just so they can easily join us. But at this point, I'm sure that having this streamed online for people to have access to is also one way to contribute to the community effortlessly. So thank you very much. And for those who did not start with us, you may want to check this playlist out on YouTube. From the day one, we started uploading this, and this is about the 14th video. So if you are confused at this point, then it's allowed. Just go back, watch what we have already put out there, and see how best you can follow. And if you have questions, you can put them on the comment section. On Facebook, you can do that. On YouTube, you can as well do that. Or even on LinkedIn as well, you can do that, and we'll be very happy to respond to you. So it's at this point I want to say thank you for your time, and I hope that you enjoy the session today. Thank you very much. So just turning off from my different streams. Okay, turning off from here as well. Thank you. And then getting out from LinkedIn. Thank you, LinkedIn family. So that will be all about that. So let me just stop screen sharing, and then I can really come here to stop the recording of this session. Stop this, stop this. Okay, guys, we are no longer live.